Okay, so Shalom Yasharala, we are back. So now let's continue on with 2 Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 1. Continuation of what we were reading about before with the oppression of the Greeks and the things they were trying to and actually doing to our people, to molest them, to hurt them, harm them, right? To establish their rule on top of them, which many of their methods were overt. They would try to do things, directly, as opposed to, like, we see more subtle ways of controlling people now. They did more direct ways of controlling folks to, might makes right, forcing you to do things. And then trying to bribe you as a process. So we can see over time Esau has tried to refine his process, but we know when it comes down to it, he's still that savage the Most High made him to be. Now, he'll always show his true colors, given enough time, like any predator that seeks after his prey. After a while, the camouflage comes off, right? And you go in for the attack. So this is 2 Maccabees chapter 8 now, and we'll read verse 1. It says, 2 Maccabees 8 and 1. Then Judas Maccabeus and they that are with him went privily into the towns and called their kinsfolks together, and took unto them all such as continued in the Jews' religion, and assembled about 6,000 men. So now Judas Maccabeus is gathering together forces that are like-minded, right? That seek to establish the Most High's righteousness in the land as before. As we have many of our people selling out to the Greco-Roman, I should say the Greek custom. We were fighting specifically against the Greeks. We say Greco-Roman now because we know that they have adopted things from the Greeks and Romans and kind of mixing together in this time.
But it was Romans fighting against the Israelites, right?
Now, during this time, it was the Greeks. It's funny because for a time, when you read the Maccabees, the Romans, who were also Esau, were actually our allies against the Greeks. So we kind of use one group of Edomites against another when you go through the story. But we know in the end, they're all the wicked, but even the wicked of other nations, like I said, you go back to Solomon's time, we read about how we even set up trade deals with them. Even though we were the top nation, we said, okay, let's set up a trade deal with Hiram of Tyre, and then you provide one set of resources and we'll provide another, right? And we'll do a trade, a trade-off, right? So you provide us with something, we provide you with something. No, he was one of the sons of Aaron. He was one of the high priests. He's one of the sons of Mattathias that were leading the revolt, the revolution. This is our people. So it says, unto them all such as continued in the Jews' religion. Religion here just talking about the law, statutes, and commandments. Not like, okay, we're following some newfound religion, but it's going into that belief system. It says 6,000 men, and they called upon the Lord that they would look upon the people that was trodden down of all, and also pity the temple profaned of ungodly men. Right? So it only makes sense, right, to try to deliver those who need the most help, right? In any unjust government, like we saw with the Greeks, we know that they needed the most help. So they said, okay, let's try to focus our efforts on helping those that need the most help. And let's focus on the temple because, the temple is like our center of gravity, right? Whatever condition the temple's in is going to be a reflection of the people. That's always been the case since we've had a temple. The temple was adorned and arrayed in righteousness. The sons of Aaron in there doing the clean practices, the offerings. It meant that Israel was doing the same, right? Because that's where we always came to for, offerings, for sacrifices during holy days, right? Now the temple is in disarray. It only makes sense that Israel as a people is in disarray. That's true even to this day. That's why even a remnant of us, we're coming back together. But as a whole, we can't just go back to Jerusalem and keep a feast like that because it's overrun by strangers. Reading on in verse 3, it says, and that he would have compassion upon the city sore defaced and ready to be made even with the ground, and hear the blood that cried unto him. Right? So when we talk about the blood, we know the blood represents the life, right? That's the life of all flesh when it says the blood cried unto him, right? Because what it's talking about is what? All the people that were killed and what? All the life that was taken in the land. Remember, even when Abel was killed by Cain, you see this similar wording that was used, right? Where it talks about Abel's blood crying from the ground unto the Lord after Cain slew him. You can just write that as a link for 8 and 3. That's in Genesis chapter 4. Mm-hmm. Genesis chapter 4, you can just write down verses 9 and 10, where you see that similar wording. And it's talking about the bloodshed of the innocent life. Genesis chapter 4 and verse 9. Link that once again with 2 Maccabees 8 and 3. I'll read this. Genesis chapter 4 and verse 9, it says, And Yahweh said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Verse 10, and he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cried unto me from the ground. Yeah. And as far as the blood representing the life of all flesh, right? Because that's a part of the law that we shouldn't eat the blood, right? Of any living, of anything, any type of beast, let alone, human blood, God forbid, right? But you're supposed to pour the blood of the animals into the ground. We're supposed to eat that. But just to show that, stay in Genesis. You can write down Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9 and verse 4. So we got Genesis 4 and 9, Genesis 9 and 4.
Chapter 9, 4 and what?
I'm going to read it now.
Chapter 9, what?
You got it right. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Chapter 9 and 4.
Right. Which says, But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. Yeah. So the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, right? Mm-hmm. So that's considered the life of the flesh, right? Mm-hmm. So when we see the blood that cried unto him, we have an idea what that verse is talking about. Okay, so let's go back to 2 Maccabees chapter 8. Second Maccabees 8, now verse 4. 2 Maccabees 8 and 4 reads, And remember the wicked slaughter of harmless infants. Sorry. Okay, I have a blank page in here. My Bible. Mm-hmm. And remember the wicked slaughter of harmless infants and the blasphemies committed against his name, and that he would show his hatred against the wicked. Right? So ask the Most High, take part in showing forth his hatred against them, or all the things that they do. Right? Especially against us, let alone what they do amongst themselves and to each other. Right? Like we talk to we got there and teach today, right? You have a certain Esau to come, to the camp and hear what we got to say. And we'll sometimes have Esau from overseas, and they'll say, oh, well, we didn't have slavery, in America, right? Because they'll see the sign showing us being taken into captivity, being sold for bondmen and bondwomen, right? Like in Deuteronomy 28:68. They'll say, well, we didn't participate in slavery, what's going to happen to us? And, the two things you could say to that is, well, you have to keep in mind that, Europe, especially Western Europe, profited off of the business of slavery, right? Doing the transatlantic slave trade with Americas and West Africa. But two, Now, you're not only answering for the wickedness done to us, but your own wickedness, as far as like we read, them being the vine of Sodom and Gomorrah, as far as their sexual immorality, whether it be incest, bestiality, right? Them eating defiled things, all types of animals they shouldn't eat, and even eating blood. Like I remember Khan Samak was going into that when he went to overseas and I think over to Germany. He was showing how they had like this delicacy called the blood pudding. They would turn blood into pudding and make it into a meal. And you can pull stuff up on YouTube where they show how they make it and everything. It's just like clearly the law says not to do that.
Against the law.
But you look at Esau anywhere in the world, you find them they're dibbling and dabbling in something they shouldn't do, according to the scriptures. But reading spiritually where they come from, as far as their nature and the values and the practices they will uphold, it shouldn't be a shock to us. We see, okay, this nation was made to be the wicked. It's got nothing to do with how I feel about race or what have you. That's just a game to get you, distracted. Let's just look at what the Most High did, what He created, and for what purpose, and come from there. And when we speak the Most High's word, who can come against that? And all they'll do, just like us, all they'll do is show forth the Most High's truth through their own actions, right? Even when they do them behind closed doors, now they're being brought out to the light. Even their own people are exposing the things they got going on. So reading on, it says in verse 5, and when Maccabees had his company about him, he would not be withstood by the heathen, for the wrath of the Lord was turned unto mercy. Now remember, the heathen is just another word for Gentile, or any nation that's not of the children of Israel. In case we don't know. That's what a heathen is. Because you might have heard that growing up, stop eating like a heathen. You say to yourself, okay, means I need to use a fork and knife and, wash my hands before eating or whatever, eat civilized. But when you read the scriptural definition, it's just strictly just saying anyone who's not of the 12 tribes of Israel, they will be considered a heathen or a Gentile or a stranger, right? All those things mean the same thing. Therefore he went at unawares and burnt up towns and cities and got into his hands the most commodious places and overcame and put to flight no small number of his enemies. So now Judas Maccabeus and those with him are building up their forces, right? Taking back over cities, waging, you could say, a guerrilla warfare of sorts against the Greek occupation, right? Taking back over cities, trusting the Lord their God, right? Taking over places that are, have strategic advantage, along with, of course, as we already read, looking after those who need the most help and trying to make one of their main goals the cleansing of the temple, at least getting the temple back in their control. It says, verse 7, but specifically took he advantage of the night for such privy attempts, insomuch that the root of his manliness was spread everywhere. So, in order to kind of keep, to kind of take things without, causing too much commotion, he says, better off we attack by night, right? Because remember Esau, that was like one of the tactics he oftentimes like to use. He said, why not use it to our advantage? Plus, we got small numbers in theirs. It'll give us the advantage to take over while they rest or while they sleep, right? And this might even be a little bit of the Levi coming out of him, because remember what Simeon and Levi did against Shechem and his people, those Hamites that forced their sister Dinah, right? They took them out when after they had first gotten circumcised. Remember that story in Genesis? They said, okay, you can have our sister and wife, but just do this one thing. We in our family, we do circumcision. You guys should do the same if you want to, be with us or be in league with us. So they said, okay, fine, no problem, because the guy Shechem, he didn't even come to them and say, I like your sister. Can I have her as a wife? He forced himself and took her. He raped her. And then asked him afterwards. So, naturally as brothers, it's like, oh, you're not going to do that to our sister. Oh, no. So they got circumcised, and then and then when they were still sore, it says those two boys, they took on that entire city and slew all the dudes. killed them all. So they used that to their advantage, even though they were outnumbered. And then, Jacob was like, oh, you caused me to stink in the land by doing this. And they were like, but should they deal with our sister as a harlot? So it's like you kind of saw where both of them were coming from. Is Jacob trying to see the big picture, even though obviously he was hurt too by what happened to his daughter. It's just like, what are we going to do now? Because they retaliate. Other Canaanite nations who are more than us. We're like a small family. We're not that big. Right? We're just. They weren't the 70 souls yet. They were on the process of getting there. But even with 70 people, that's not a lot. Versus hundreds, thousands of them. Hey. Weapon of choice in the Caribbean. Right? It was a tool for, cutting down the sugar cane for massa, but they said, we could use this for something else. Yes, indeed. But either way, like I said, he's righteous and he's wise. So he's using that to his advantage. Remember, Mattathias said this before he died, their father. He said, Judas is valiant in battle. Let him be your captain. He knew that was his forte. So when we see Judas in action, he's going to put those things into his employment to give himself the advantage, even though he was, less in number than the Greeks. Let's continue on. It says in verse 8. So when did you have a link? Is that what you were saying? Okay. Verse 8. So when Philip saw that this man increased by little and little, and that things prosper with him still more the more. So even with him trying to play it low key, take over cities step by step, doing attacks by night, because he knew the more he did things out in the open, it would be like he would get a name for himself, like a reputation. We saw with warriors of old, like David before he was king, and he got a reputation even amongst the Philistines and the other Hamite nations, right, because of his mighty acts. Or like even Joshua before him, right? And when they heard Joshua's name in Canaan, when we first took Canaan, it was like, oh, we know about you and your God. Please, don't hurt us, right? Like Rahab said, right? You try to come to the spies and go, oh, I know who you guys are. I heard what you did to those other guys. You gonna do that to our city too? So Judas, knowing this past, given he was following the same suits of those great warriors of old, like Joshua and David, he said, we try to attack by night, do it little by little. Win the land back from my people. But even with that, still the heathen, are getting word like, yo, these Jews, they got this guy. He's a problem, and he's got thousands under him now. And we're gonna have to really, deal with this issue. That we got to cut off his wing before they can truly spread out. That's what we see here with Philip getting word about what Judas is doing. Verse 8, so when Philip saw that this man increased by little and little, and that things prospered with him still more and more, he wrote unto Ptolemaeus, the governor of Celesyria, and Phoenicia, to yield more aid to the king's affairs. Now he's reaching out to the other branches of the Greek government, right? The other heads of the Greek government. Remember, he came out of the Seleucids, which was one kingdom. But now he's here reaching out to you know what? Let me say this is actually still part of the Seleucid dynasty. I think his name was just Ptolemaeus, because the Ptolemies in particular, they ruled over the branch of the kingdom that was in northern Egypt, right? I think these guys are part of the Seleucid dynasty, which ruled over Asia Minor and Syria. So reaching out to the other leaders. Verse 9, then forthwith choosing Nicanor, son of Patroclus. Now we know about this guy Nicanor, right? Every year we read about Nicanor's destruction, right? Which is coming up pretty soon. The son of Patroclus, one of his special friends, he sent him with no fewer than 20,000 of all nations under him to root out the whole generation of the Jews. Check that out. The whole generation, right? Not just Judas and his men, but take them all. And with him he joined also Gorgias, a captain, who in matters of war had great experience. So he's getting together all types of men that have different types of skill and power and talent. Because, like I said, okay, this guy has a movement going on. He's got people behind him. All right, let's make sure we take twice as much force, right? to thwart this so that we send that strong message that anyone else who want to, rise up like him, here's what'll happen. So Nicanor undertook to make so much money of the captive Jews as should defray the tribute of 2,000 talents, which the king was to pay the Romans. Right? So not only is this, this warfare to expand the kingdom, but then he's also using this as an investment strategy to say, okay, I'm gonna invest this resource into taking out Judas, but now I'm gonna do to also make some money out of this. When I take them out, I'm gonna set up a thing where I can capture them, a certain number of them, sell them as slaves, and use that money to pay off the Romans. But they're making all types of enterprise, right, to handle their own affairs. Let's see if it's going to be fruitful. Verse 11, wherefore immediately he sent to the cities upon the seacoast, proclaiming a sale of the captive Jews, and promising that they should have 80 bodies for 1 talent, not expecting the vengeance that was to follow upon him from the Almighty God. So, he's not thinking, okay, Judas Maccabees is dealing with the Most High. It's not going to go down like that. He's already got, plots and schemes to say, he's like putting out the sale before it happened, right? Before you get the riches or get the sales, almost like you're trying to tell people, look, we're already going to be successful. When we are, I promise you X, Y, Z, right? So people are hearing that and going, oh, okay, so we expect you to deliver. We'll have our money ready. He's saying, yeah, there you go. He's like getting the market ready for a product he hasn't even had yet.
Pre-sale price.
There you go.
Because he won't be victorious. That's what he said.
Yeah, there you go. Like today, it's a pre-order sales. For like a movie or like the release of a new electronic device or something, right? They'll do pre-order sales. Like something crazy could happen. The production plant could blow up or something, or something. Who knows? They say yes, we're going to have these delivered by this time. That's that hope.
If you're doing slavery, they probably did that doing slavery. It's like, look, I got X amount of shipment. I can bring you X amount of slaves, this much money, things like that. Boom. All right, fine. Here's a precept. Here's an advancement.
Yep. Because we're good for it. We'll be good for it. Don't worry.
Yeah, a lot of slaves coming.
Yep. Things written the 4th time, right? Verse 12. Now, when word was brought unto Judas of Nicanor's coming, he had imparted unto those that were with him that the army was at hand. Then they that were fearful and distrusted the justice of God fled and conveyed themselves away. So, hey, this is part of how it works. This is part of warfare, right? Everybody's not going to roll with you to the very end. As you go through and through, some are going to stick by you, others are going to flee for help or flee for protection. Because you listen to those numbers, right? If we got about 6,000. They got 20,000.
Remember with Gideon?
Oh yeah, come and Judges. So, but now our law actually permits that, because the law even says what? Any man be fearful, let him go home. Don't fight. Because with the Most High, we know it's not about that. Most High said, I can win a victory with one person, let alone 1,000, let alone 100,000. I can easily allow a smaller force to take on a larger. Didn't I do it before with your ancestors? Right? Why can't I do it for you? This is just part of the proving ground, But just to link with this, you can link this with, I'll get 2 scriptures. And see your hand. You can link the 2 Maccabees 8 and 13 with 1 Maccabees 3 and 56.
Again.
You can link 1 Maccabees 3 and 56.
First Maccabees.
Chapter 3 in verse 56.
Chapter 3 and 56.
Yeah. And Malak, if you could read that, Baba Prashad. And then we get a link with this verse after we read this one.
So, the second Maccabees go with
First Maccabee 13, yeah. Go ahead and read that once you have it. First Maccabees 3 and 56. And then Pathak, I'm gonna have you read the next link. And then I see your hand. Oh, y'all come in. Hey, you know, I get it though. There's a lot of things that you can fear, you know. Even when you know the truth, you can still be afraid. One thing or another, you know.
First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 36.
56.
56.
First Maccabees chapter 3, verse 56. But as for such as were building houses, or had betrothed wives, or were planting vineyards, or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return every man to his own house according to the law.
So according to the law, you were building houses, you were just being betrothed to a wife, planting vineyards, or just afraid. Just go home. Okay. Right? Mainly focusing on the fearful part. But those were other conditions too, where it said stay home because the law said that. You look at the reasoning behind it, it makes sense because what point is it you can't go to war to destroy and you can't even build up your own nation, right? You got folks that are building houses. You need construction to continue to build a nation. If you have men that just betroth wives, you need them to stay together so that they can build a nation, right? So we can increase as a people, right? Why should they go to war? If you were afraid, we know that fear, just like courage, is contagious. One person is afraid, that thing can spread. Now you're in the front lines, and all of a sudden, everybody around you is like running the other way. You want to run too,
Yeah.
right? So it spreads. That's why in the French have a word for it. They call it esprit de corps, right? Which is like the spirit of the men, right? As far as if they have that low morale, even if you have a force that's less than you can easily lose against a weaker force when you don't have that morale to go out and fight. They said, stay home. So go ahead and read that once you have it. Oh, I didn't call the verse yet. Link this with Deuteronomy chapter 20. I'm ahead of myself. Deuteronomy 20, and it's verses 5 down to 8. This is where first Maccabees 3:56 coming from. And up a fact, I want you to read that one. All this still links with verse 13, so just keep them together. So up a fact, I want you to read this one. Deuteronomy 20, 5 down to 8.
Okay. 20 to 5 and 8.
Right. What they say in sports, they say go hard or go home, right? The way he worded it too. They that were fearful and distrusted the justice of God. That's a lot of us. Even in the truth, we may even question. But definitely our people in the world, right? You tell our people in the world, Esau, is going to get what's coming to him. They'll get mad, right? Especially the more, pro-black of our people. They say, "Oh, I'm tired of you trusting that slave master God. You know, we've been waiting for God for so long. We got to take matters to our own hands, you know. You guys don't realize why it all happened to begin with.
Deuteronomy 20, chapter 5. And the officer shall speak unto the people, saying, what
That's right.
man is there that has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man will dedicate it.
Right. So let him dedicate his house if he built a new house, right? Don't want some other man taking his inheritance, you know.
6. And what a man is he that has planted a vineyard and has not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle. Another man will eat of it.
Right. So you just planted a vineyard, right, to provide for, you know, wine or you know, for grapes, right, for consumption in different ways. Go home and dedicate that, right? Otherwise, that'll be given over to someone else, you know.
And what a man is there that has betrothed,
That's a betrothed.
betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle and another man take her.
Right. So you want to create a widow before the time. You just got married, right?
Right.
So be at home, cheer up thy wife, right? You just newly married. Like I say, you look at the wisdom behind all this is all about the nation continuing while going to war, right? You don't want to go to war and at the same time destroy the nation in the process, right? We don't.
And the officer shall speak privily unto the people, and they shall say, what a man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brother's heart faint as well as his heart.
That's what we were just saying earlier, right? If you be fearful and faint-hearted, go home and return to your house, lest your brethren's heart faint as your heart faints. Like we're saying, courage and fear are contagious, both. Same way courage by one can inspire many, fear by one can inspire many too. Right? Like you cite the 300 movie, right? What do you say? What do you say? The purges in the back cried forward. Purges in the front cried back. Right? Remember show that scene in that movie because you see the purges in the back of the army were telling everybody go go go. Right. Everybody in the front of the army was running back 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 because the Spartans were taking them out there. That were in the front. Yeah, you see the guy trying to run away and he get stabbed right in his chest. Yeah, so
in that picture, Spartacus, he say, the Persian army say, we got an army that beat anybody. He said, but these Spartacus, they fight like machines.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It was like 300 of them, but they fought. They outbeat the Persians.
I have to see, right? I have to see the old one you're talking about. I haven't seen the old one yet.
So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Is that depicting the story of Daniel, or that's just saying something else?
Oh, that whole battle took place before. That was when the Greeks were still under the Persians were still a dominant empire at that time.
Oh, okay. Oh,
history is called the Battle of Thermopylae. You can just Google that. Go to any primary source. You get the story behind that battle, behind what they now call the 300 Spartans. That's the actual battle in history. But it was during the wars between the Persians and the Greeks, which was for quite some time. Which they didn't really get the advantage until Alexander, which was I think almost like 100 years later. Because that Battle of Thermopylae was like during the 400s BC. It was before the Greeks became the dominant empire.
Oh, okay.
That was part of their rise up before they would be the next top empire, you know. What Daniel talked about took place after that, with the rough he goat that his feet didn't touch the ground. You talking about that, right? Yeah, that was after.
Man, what is your profession?
I'm a potter, sir.
I got that. I'm also talking about Babylon when the Persians took that. So that was after the Persians took over Babylon.
Right.
That was after that.
Right.
Okay. They were fighting the Greeks, and then the Greeks took it from the Persians.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's it. You had a scripture you want to bring out before we read on? Oh,
Not yet.
Yeah.
And then in true history, the Persians. I mean, when the Persians were fighting, when the Spartans came, that was 300 BC.
that was before. It was like, I think, in the 400s.
That was 400 BC.
But just look at the Battle of Thermopylae.
Oh, okay.
I forget how to spell it, but you'd start typing it in, it'll come up. Google will auto do it. You know, it'll spell it out, and you'll know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the battle that story is supposed to be based on.
That's when the Spartans were fighting the Persians.
Yeah. And you know, what Esau with the movies, they like to, you know, embellish parts of it, you know, because the whole thing is to, you know, boost up Esau and say, yes, look how manly they were, and you know, they kind of exaggerate certain parts of history, you know, for cinematic purposes, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
What's the bad number what?
Thermopylae,
For
Thermopylae, THER something or other. I'll pull it up real quick. It'll show up when you put it in. Hold on.
That was the Edomite too, you know.
There it is. Like thermometer, thermo, PYLAE. You just research that and you'll get more information.
You said third Napoli or third Maccabees?
Thermopylae.
Thermo. Okay, so third THERM.
Like thermo, a thermometer.
Yeah.
That's the battle that movie's based on.
It was all Edomite too.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed that, to me, it showed the strategy what the Most High could do, you know. There was a small number of them.
But that had nothing to do with the Most High, though.
I know.
My understanding what you're saying.
Well, right, but technically he's responsible for everything, you know.
Oh, so he gave it away too. He left it win anyway. Okay.
It was kind of the beginning of them coming into power anyway, as a nation.
Oh, okay. It was their time.
Yeah. So it depends how you look at it. But I know what you're saying as far as like, wasn't the Most High behind them in the battle like he was behind us? Not the, yeah, it's not the same, right?
It just goes to show you, you know, with the power of, you know, that the small numbers, what the small numbers can do.
Yeah.
Once they all, you know, sit fast and hold their strength.
Absolutely.
So read one quick one. You know, Exodus 15:3. He says, "The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name."
Okay. You're reading that
Exodus what?
15:3.
how are you connecting? Just curious. You connecting that with Judas? Like why'd you read that verse?
No, when you talk about, you know, wars and stuff like that, you know, the Most High is a man of war.
Okay. I'm just, you know, just folks may not be familiar why you pulled it.
Yeah, because they're talking about battles and stuff like that. War.
Okay.
World history of war among in history.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 2 Maccabees chapter 8, 14 now. It says, others sold all that they had left and withdrawal besought the Lord to deliver them, being sold by the wicked Nicanor before they met together. Right? So they already wrote themselves off. See that? They heard about, you know, big bad Nicanor, right? And how terrible he was and the soldiers that he had, and said, sure, sell all I had, because once this guy comes on the scene, that's it.
They were fighting
Mm-hmm. It says, and if not for their own sakes, yet for the covenants he had made with their fathers, and for his holy and glorious name by which they were called. So it says, so Maccabees called his men together unto the number of 6,000, and exhorted them not to be stricken with terror of the enemy, nor to fear the great multitude of the heathen who came wrongfully against them, but to fight manfully. So he's like, okay, everybody that's we got all the fearful man out of the crowd. Okay, we got the get the leaven out of the lump. All right, great. So who's left? Cool. Now, back to business. Most sides on our side. Here's why. Boom, 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 boom. We can take these guys, no problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's what he told him?
Yes, he had to kind of, you had to weed out the weak links, right?
Boost up their morale, have to get out the weak link.
Exactly. 17, and to set before their eyes the injury that they had unjustly done to the holy place. He's focusing on the justice aspect. Show what? We can trust in the Most High's justice that he'll deliver us. Because look at how these heathen have come against us wrongfully, right? So if we're coming in with righteousness, he'll fight on our behalf, right? Just as he did for our forefathers that came before us. And cruelly handling of the city. So let me read 17 from the top. And to set before their eyes the injury that they had unjustly done to the holy place, and the cruel handling of the city, so what they did to the temple and to Jerusalem, whereof they made a mockery, and also the taking away of the government of their forefathers. For they, said he, trust in their weapons and boldness. But our confidence is in the almighty power, who at a beck can cast down both them that come against us and also all the world. Check that out. Right now, we may read this and go, yeah, that's true. And we may have a battle with the face right now, with something in our personal life, right? And we muster that same level of courage, even for the small things we go through. We should. We may not always. We might have to, go down and out for a time, and then until we realize, wait a minute, let me just ask the Lord for some help. And then before you know it, because the Most High is waiting for us to ask for help, then he delivers us from whatever that said peril was, whether something with your family or something on the job or something you got going on out here. You're like, wow, I should have called upon you sooner. I feel kind of silly. Thank you, Most High. I won't doubt you. I'll try not to doubt you again. And then your faith increases. Before you read that, I get some scriptures to link with what we read in verse 18. Right, to link with 8 and 18. Oh, that was one of them I was going to get, but I'm actually going to get this psalm too. Let me read this psalm, and I have a verse in Samuel, and then you can read your verse, okay? Or verses. I'm not sure, you might have more than one. Okay, so let me read this in Psalms. So this is Psalms 118. Psalms 118, verses 8 and 9. Yes. So Psalms 118, verse 8 and 9. And Gabar, if you could read that, Baba Bashar, we would appreciate it. Psalm 118, verse 8 and verse 9.
All right, Psalms 118, verses 8 and 9. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man.
So it's better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in man, what man can do. Because while men are powerful, right, and men en masse, right, combined towards a common goal, they can do a great deal. We know this throughout history, right? But it's best to trust in the Lord, who can do even more, and even men united for one common goal or purpose. Verse 9.
Verse 9. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in princes.
So same idea. It's better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in princes, right, or chiefs. Because we saw this what some of our people did when they heard about Nicanor. They said, "Yo, when this guy gets in motion, all his power, we might as well hang it up. sell all that I have, right? We got no shot. So confidence in princes, either for your part or against your part. Trust in the Lord above and beyond them. And here's the other link. Jeremiah chapter 17. If you could read this too, Kabar, Baba Kushar. Well, please. Jeremiah chapter 17. We'll read from 5 to 8.
All right, Jeremiah 17, 5 to 8. Says, thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departed from the Lord.
So it says, thus saith Yahweh, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, right? And maketh flesh his arm or his strength, right? Trusting in that which is carnal, right? The physical. And whose heart departed from Yahweh, right? Because he's looking, saying, man, I'm not going to trust in, the Most High. I don't see him. Where's he at? Now, what I can see is what I have right here. I got this money. I got these men, these soldiers, right? I got this firepower. Who can stand against that? Right? That's what people say right now with the Western countries, especially America, right? They say, who can fight with America? That's like it says in Revelation, right? Who can make war into the beast? Who's got an army like America, right? Who's got the resources like we do? We got nuclear warheads. We got drones. We got stuff coming out of research and development, defense contractors, right? We got all types of goodies that we haven't even used yet.
Right.
Who can stand against that?
Right.
You can read on to 6.
6. For he shall be like the heat in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land and not inhabited.
So a person doesn't trust in the Lord, trusts in what men can do. This will be his outcome, right? The parched places in the wilderness, right? The deserted, empty places, a salt land, right? With salt, that was used in warfare too, right? You read about during the wars between the Carthaginians and the Romans, right? Like with Hannibal and them. That's how Africa got its name from that Roman general, Leo Scipio Africanus. Right. When he fought against the Carthaginians on the Punic Wars, that was a technique they used I think it was on the Third Punic War. They went down there, they took salt, and they threw it on the land of the Carthaginians where they grew their crops to feed the people. Because he throws salt on the ground, it stunts red vegetation from growing.
So they killed their food supply.
Mm-hmm. You read the history about those wars, what happened. When it says a salt land, just so that you can understand. Right. Right. The Carthaginians used the elephants against the Romans in the Alps. Right. Read on in verse 7.
Verse 7. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is.
Right. So now on the flip side, blessed is the man that trusteth in Yahweh, whose hope Yahweh is. Right. So you're blessed if you do this. If you're cursed if you do the other thing. What happens for that man that trusts in the Lord? Verse 8 is going to tell us, yeah.
For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit.
Right, so an ever-abounding fruitful tree with all types of water helping the soil to help that tree grow. That's how the person is that trusts in the Lord. Right, so you understand. So we have wilderness, desert places, right, without inhabitant versus fruitful tree growing and bearing forth fruit. Which one do you want to be? And whatever the answer is, you better put your trust in the right thing. Trust in man? Mm-mm. Trust in the Lord? Yes. Okay. What was your link in Psalms?
Psalms 27.
Okay.
Psalm 27. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God.
12.
Psalms 27.
Oh, that's right. I'll get this one too. I mentioned the one in Samuel. And we'll continue on. 1 Samuel chapter 17. First Samuel 17, 45 to 47. This is the famous David versus Goliath confrontation. Yeah. We'll see what David said back to Goliath, who taunted us and taunted our God, and said that, yeah, Dagon, Philistines, we're that dude, we're that people. You can't step to us, etc. and so forth. I'll leave your bodies for the carcasses of the birds of the prey, etc. and so forth. He was talking big trash. And nobody wanted to step to that guy because the Philistines were no joke. They were a tough nation. We fought with them long time, back and forth. Even after David's death, you read about us going back and forth with them. But Goliath, he was over 9 feet tall, and he wasn't just like tall and like skinny. These guys were jacked, man. Yeah, because Saul was like, he was saying like to all the men, he's like, yeah, whoever takes on him, I'll give him even my daughter to wife. And, the men heard that and they were like, oh, okay. They looked back at him, they were like, I'm still afraid for my life. I don't want to go there, man. I'll pass.
A prize right there.
Yeah, so the Most High, when he proved us, he didn't just give us little chumps to fight. Even going back to the time of Joshua and Caleb, right? Remember, they were the only two that were like, yeah, we can take them. The rest of the spies were like, and them Canaanites, them guys are humongous. Those Anakims, oh no, those Emims, we're like grasshoppers to them. They'll squash us. So yeah.
I mean, what gave you the endurance to fight?
Say what?
What gave David the endurance to fight Goliath?
When you read the story, it tells you that when he was defending the sheep, he had a situation where a lion, I think it's another situation where a bear tried to get the sheep. And I guess he just went into action and he was able to take on the lion and to take on the bear on his own hands. So just having that experience, he was tending with the sheep. He said, the Most High can give me this power. By my trust in him, he can give me power against this dude.
So Goliath is like 12 feet tall.
I think over 9 feet tall. So he says he was 6 cubits.
Well, a cubit is like 18 inches, eh?
Yeah, 1.5 feet. You do the math, six cubits is like 9 feet.
Okay.
So it says 45, 1 Samuel 17, 45. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of Yahweh of hosts, the power of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will Yahweh deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air. That's what he said to us. He said, I'm going to give the bodies of the Israelites to the fowls of the air. So he said, today we're going to take your bodies to give them to the fowls of the air.
That's right.
I'm in 46 now. 1 Samuel 17, I started in 45. I'm halfway through 46. It says, and I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a power in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that Yahweh saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahweh's, and he will give you into our hands. So speaking forth that same wisdom that
was David said to
Goliath.
Goliath.
He's speaking forth that same wisdom that the battle is the Most High's, right? That he's the one that declared victory or defeat.
How can you talk to Goliath? Goliath way up there Like barely hearing.
Yeah, how,
Yeah.
yeah, how he had a bullhorn.
He-
Right?
he- Uh-oh.
Bullhorn.
Yo.
Bullhorn.
There's actually a scripture that addresses that, but let him read his
I
first.
guess evidently you must have heard something.
He could still hear him, brother.
Yeah,
I think a loud voice he could still hear.
Yeah, they were talking to each other.
Right. They were face to face. Even though he's looking up to him, he could still talk to him. Like NBA players can't hear regular people. Come on, man. Come on now.
They did. They were just a jump shot.
They wouldn't hear the referees. Say, what'd you say, ref? What? They argue with referees, right? Sometimes they act like they're about to sock the referees, right? When it's like, you fixing the game, you mother. That's another discussion. Good. You guys are funny. You brothers are funny. Because that's 1 Samuel 17, 45 to 47.
You read 47 there?
Yeah, that was the last verse I read, where it says, the battle is Yahweh's, and he will deliver you into our hands.
Okay.
So the point being, trust in the Most High, like David did, like Jeremiah said to do, like other of our forefathers and foremothers did in different situations, not just in battle, right? But they trust in the Lord, even when it came to domestic affairs, like being able to bear children, right? Let's not forget about all the sisters that trust in the Lord when they were considered barren. And the Most High, through his power, allowed them to conceive. So, all these things go back to the same thing, trust in the Most High with things that you think aren't possible.
Because not like saying, David is like might versus might,
Mm-hmm.
Like in karate, they say, you don't go might.
Yeah.
Big, the side you're gonna go and take him down. Another what?
Con. Let's not even forget about battle concerning sisters. Let's not forget about Jael, who took out Sisera, hammering a nail in his temples. And of course, Judith, that took his own sword when he was asleep and hacked his head off.
Because they asked for the most high strength because she didn't have all that shit.
Yeah. This sword is heavy. So it's whatever is impossible, whether it be man, woman, or child. Like we read in the last chapter, that youngest boy, he spoke boldly to this king Antiochus of the Greeks, like he was a peon, because he knew the truth. Like, oh, you guys are finished. You guys are wicked. Most High's got you guys taken care of. I'm gonna be set. Do what you want, right? I'm good, not you. You got judgment coming for you. They have a little Hebrew boy. He's the Greeks looking down upon us, like, yeah, they're our servants, they're our slaves. You got this young Hebrew boy calling you out as a king, right? And his pride was lifted up, but the little boy was right.
And that made the king more harshness, more upset.
Yeah. He fell right into the trap. Because don't doubt in your mind that he's not going to be there in the judgment. Wherever he is now, he might be in the earth now, he might be in the spirit world. But that same Antiochus, he's got the answer for that. In that day of judgment when Christ comes back. It's the same revelation. Every eye shall see him, even those which pierced him. Even those the Romans that pierced Christ during that day of crucifixion. They're going to see Christ when he comes back. It's going to be known, oh, you were the one that actually, put him to death. Right? Or you're the one that actually pierced him. We know he died on the cross ultimately, but the scripture says he will be delivered to death by the Pharisees and scribes. But then it says he will be delivered to the Romans or the Gentiles to be mocked, scourged, and crucified. And the third day he shall rise. So
They gonna show up.
they're going to be there. They're going to know. It's going to be shown to them if they don't see it already. They're going to be shown, yeah, you were the one. One of the ones that mocked, scourged, and helped crucify Christ and pierced him. Here's your judgment.
That's in the time when how shall come back.
Yeah. So sucks to be them. Hardcore. Anyway, let's continue. Where we at? All those were links for 18. So let's read on to 19. Second Maccabees chapter 8, verse 19. Moreover, he recounted unto them what helps their forefathers had found, and how they were delivered when, I was going to quote him, but I said, let me wait till we get to the verse. When under Sennacherib, 185,000 perished. Yeah, remember that history? I'm glad I didn't mention that one. Now we got a link for 19. But let's get the verse for that too, because it tells you when you read it. So Sennacherib, he was a king of Assyria. He came against King Hezekiah, right? He was one of the I think it was like 3 righteous kings who stayed righteous their whole life. It was David, Hezekiah, and Josiah, right? So Hezekiah is one of those kings that stayed righteous to the end. Didn't, go aside at other gods, or he didn't leave high places, set up, right? Totally had that full fidelity his whole life. When faced with the Sennacherib and his army of almost 200,000, we're gonna get the scripture in Kings now, but it tells you that one angel took out the entire army. So I always like to make that distinction. One angel took out 185,000 men. I said, so when Christ comes with the thousands of heaven, I don't care if you got 1 billion men. Let's say out of the 6 billion, you got 1 billion that actually are warriors. What's that gonna matter? What's that gonna matter? With thousands of angels.
What's the angel name? Aliyah?
What's that?
What's the angel name? Aliyah?
I didn't say his name.
I mean, what's the topic for the angel?
What's the topic?
What's the name brand for the angel? You call him Aliyah?
Elohim.
Oh yeah. Okay. It's Elohim. Means
Elohim?
Elohim. That's how you say it in the Hebrew.
Elohim.
It just means powers.
Oh, okay.
It could pertain to the Most High, Christ, or angels.
Okay.
It just means powers. Yeah. In some cases, it refers to men.
Okay.
Depending on context.
Second Maccabees,
So link this with verse 19. We're going to go to one in Kings or Chronicles. Let me get it in Kings. 2 Kings.
You sure?
I think it's in both places. Because Kings and Chronicles talk about the same history a lot of times.
Second Kings?
Yeah, 2 Kings chapter 19. I'll give you both. I'll give it to you in Kings and Chronicles. It's like the Gospels, the same thing can be found in more than one Gospel. Same thing with Kings and Chronicles. They talk about the same thing. Sometimes one has detail, the other one doesn't.
It's for both of them. Second Kings, Second Chronicles.
Yeah, so 2 Kings 19. You just write down 35 to 37. 2 Kings 19. 35.
You
Huh?
said Second Kings 19, 35, 37.
Yeah.
Now you're in Second Chronicles.
Right. I'm reading that. I just read it twice in case folks didn't hear.
What's the link to the Second Chronicles?
Okay, so everybody has the first one, right?
Yeah.
So 2 Chronicles 32.
32.
And you can read from let's see. Uh, 21 down to 23.
32 chapters, 21 to 23.
Yeah, but it's more on this one in Kings because I think the one in Chronicles doesn't really go into what the angel did. It just more so goes into what happened to Sennacherib after him trying to come against the children of Israel. It doesn't go into the same level of detail, but you can read that one too. It just says an angel cut off all the men of valor. It doesn't say the number, but you can still link it.
Second Kings.
I'll read both. It's 2 Kings 19, 35 to 37.
Right.
Second Chronicles 32, 21 to 23.
Right.
And y'all can, you can read both of those, Baba Kushan. And then we'll continue. Both of those links.
Second King.
You with us, brother? Everything all right?
Looking at Jephthah, that he's telling the youth to fight, and they didn't fight.
Oh, you get another link. I read those. Well, quoted those. So yeah, 2 Kings 19:35
Second King.
to 37, and then we'll read the one in Chronicles too.
Second King, 1945, 37.
2 Kings 19, verse 35.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Syrians and 185,000.
Mm-hmm.
And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses.
Right. So one angel took out almost 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
No, I meant to say like Esau trying to make fun of the angels, saying, oh, all these angels can hold on the top of a pin and make them look like little babies flying in the air, and all feminine stuff like that.
Right. The closest thing they got to actual angels, which actually might have to give credit to us, depending on information about who the Vikings actually were, but what they call the Valkyries, right? Which were considered you had two different types of Valkyrie, but the Valkyrie during the Dark Ages were considered the soldier's angel, and the idea was for the Vikings and others like them during that time was if you fought valiantly in battle, that the Valkyries would come and fight for you. And if you died, that you would be, set up in the hall of the gods, as they call it Valhalla. Your name will be remembered forever as, you died valiantly in battle. You'd be remembered amongst the other gods, so to speak.
The Vikings said that?
Yeah, that was their belief. You just look up the Valkyries, you'll see the whole mythology behind them. They took bits of the truth and mixed it up with, other stuff. Read on. Read down to 37.
So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. Verse 37. And it came to pass as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that Adrammelech and Sharezer, his son, smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia, and Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead.
Right. And then the other one was in the other one was in Chronicles 32. I wanted you to read that too. Second Chronicles 32, 21 to 23.
Second Chronicles
32.
32.
Verses 21 to 23. And like I said, it's funny how, he would have an end like that, being killed by his own sons. But then while he's worshiping his false gods, it's like they say, good habits die hard. After seeing what happened to his own soldiers by our God, he still doesn't know to go back and worship his false god. Yo. Might have been mad at Nisroch, right? Why'd you let him do that? Why'd you kill my soldiers?
My son said, you need to give that up. That guy ain't working.
Not to say they were foul him either, but this is crazy. Yeah.
Day God, remember that Republican day God and all that stuff.
Every time they went in there in the morning, the day God had fallen over. Not day God falling over.
They fight the angels when they come to see.
Exactly.
So when Esau gonna see the chariots up in the head, he's like, how am I gonna fight with that?
It won't matter if you can see him or not.
Yeah, I mean, in the day when Christ comes back and so forth, you're still going to see the chariots up there, and they're like, how am I going to fight that? Even now, if they see like a UFO flying, they're trying to see if they can catch it, and they can't.
Right.
Oh yeah, when they see them forcing up there.
Yeah, when they see the UFO go, it's like, and
UFO, yeah.
like 90 degrees or 45 degrees, and
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Yeah.
Not even a smoke behind.
Yeah, come.
Second Chronicles 32, verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
Same story, but just in the Chronicles. We don't.
Second Chronicles 32, verse 21. And the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men of valor, and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame
On his face.
of his face to his own land. And when he was come into the house of his God, they that came forth of his own bowels slew him there with the sword.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Thus the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hands of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all other, and guided them on every side.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You read it?
Yeah.
And 23. And many brought gifts unto the Lord to Jerusalem, and presents to Hezekiah king of Judah, so that he was magnified in the sight of all nations from henceforth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the history of what we're reading about in Second Maccabees 8. That they're looking back to say, okay, he did that for him in righteousness. If we're following righteousness, he can do the same for us too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was without an army. Not to say Hezekiah didn't have an army on standby, but while Sennacherib's army rested that night, the angel killed him at night. That's why I said he woke up in the morning, the whole army was dead.
Who did that?
No, the Assyrians.
Who would they be today? Who would they be today?
Today they're called the Kurds. The Kurds. Kurds over there, like in the Middle East.
Oh, okay.
That's what it be today.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
It's on our little table of nations we bring to camp. Mm-hmm. So back in Second Maccabees chapter 8, let's read on in verse 20. Second Maccabees 8 and 20. And he told them of the battle that they had in Babylon with the Galatians, how they came but 8,000 in all to the business, with 4,000 Macedonians, and that the Macedonians being perplexed, the 8,000 destroyed 120,000 because of the help that they had from heaven. Sorry. The help they had from heaven, and so received a great booty, right? This booty is going into, plunder or riches, right? Like pirate's booty, they call it, right? Not like talking about someone's, derriere, so to speak. It's funny, you see the word, you're like, huh? It just means spoils, like spoils of war, like treasure. Because when you conquer an army, you take all their spoils, right? It's also called booty.
Oh, that's booty.
Mm-hmm. So just remembering things that happened in recent history, saying, yeah, we had this victory in battle. Look at the Most High deliver over 100,000 of them into our hand. So why can't he do the same thing now? So those are all things to encourage them. Show that what the Most High can and will fight for us if we just trust him. 21. Thus when he had made them bold with these words and ready to die for the laws and the country, he divided his army into 4 parts, and joined with himself his own brethren, leaders of each band, to wit, Simon and Joseph and Jonathan, giving each one 1,500 men. Right, so he broke up his army into different bands, right, and then gave parts of that army unto his leaders, his brethren, right, those that were nigh unto him. So divvied up the army so that they could all work different parts of the formation. The what?
Generals was king.
Simon, Joseph, and John.
Yeah. I'm not sure about Joseph. I guess he just was another brother that was in league with them, but Simon and Jonathan were his brothers. Then it says in 23, also he appointed Eleazar to read the holy book, and when he had given them this watchword, the help of God, right? So you might have like a slogan that you might use to rally up the troops or to encourage the team, right? Theirs was the help of God. And it makes sense because it's kind of interesting because they use the brother's name, I guess, as the watchword. Because, Eleazar means, it comes from the Hebrew, Allah Izar, which means help of God, or my help come from God.
That's what he used as a to build the morale up.
Yeah. It says the help of God. That was their watchword. So they would call it out, and that would be like the thing they would all remember going into the fight. Himself, kind of like, what's the, go back to 300 again, not to talk about it too much, but remember what they used to say? They used to say, what was the thing that they used to say in 300? You remember?
What? In the movie, didn't they say 300?
I think in the movie they said, what was it, live free, die well, something like that? Is that another movie? I think that's another movie.
Yeah, the good one. The word that he used, battle cry, when they play,
But you guys get the idea.
the battle cry, they cried out before they went to war.
Yes.
I was about to say something like that, It means battle cry, That's the charge when they go for war.
But I thought y'all couldn't remember he's kind of back there quiet. So
No, what's the word? Come on,
it's all good. There's no book of 300s. There's no book of 300s. So it's all good. Doesn't matter.
I know the part that this is where we fight. This is they die.
Uh-huh. You know what? I think he might have said something like it right before he went on the solo fight. Remember, it was like slow mo. He's like,
Yeah.
he throws the spear.
That was a good movie, though. Yeah.
So
Well, each one of them had when they went to battle, they each had a battle cry. Crowd out. Like the Indians, they howl and scream. Yeah, that's what they howl out. That's me, get them.
So ours here, knowing the truth, was the help of God. So our trust was in the Most High, not in our own strength. It says himself leading the first band, he joined battle with Nicanor. So now the fight has commenced. Let's see what happens. And by the help of the Almighty, they slew above 9,000 of their enemies, and wounded and maimed the most part of Nicanor's host, and so put all to flight. So the Most High was with them that day.
He was with them, sure was.
Look at that, 9,000. It says in 25, that's where they say the Widowmaker. The expression Widowmaker, you see that in used in military different times, right? We were the Widowmakers in that day. Like they had that movie about that submarine. I think it's called the K-19, the Widowmaker. In other words, it's like you're gonna launch so much destruction against these armies. You're gonna create a bunch of widows. As far as how much bloodshed you're gonna cause. All these men slain that were married. It says in 25, and took their money that came to buy them, and pursued them far, but lacking time, they returned. So much for selling the Jews, right? Didn't work out like that. 26, for it was the day before the Sabbath, and therefore they would no longer pursue them, right? So they chased them throughout the week, and they said, okay, the Sabbath comes. They got the message. We got the victory. We got the spoils, and more than enough. Sabbath's coming. Let's rest and thank the Most High. So when they had gathered their armor together and spoiled their enemies, they occupied themselves about the Sabbath, yielding exceeding praise and thanks to Yahweh, who have preserved them unto that day, which was the beginning of mercy to still upon them. That's a beautiful thing. That he's given that opportunity, because remember, we read in First Maccabees, that was something they were using as a tactic to slay us on the Sabbath, right? Because they knew that we would be resting, we wouldn't be, one to arm ourselves.
Okay, they knew that, huh?
Yeah, so they use that to gain the advantage. That's what they do even now when it comes to taking over nations. They look at a people's culture, practices, and use it as a means to infiltrate and to destroy. But now we can now keep our Sabbath in righteousness, as the Most High has given us the ability to fight them back because of our faith. It says in 28, and after the Sabbath, when they had given part of spoils to the main and the widows and orphans, the residue they divided amongst themselves and their servants. So check that out. That's very important. So they looked at all the treasury, and like they said before, they kept the mission the same. We read that in the beginning. That what? When we go out here, our main focus is to restore those who need the most help and to restore the temple. So they didn't get high-minded and go, oh, look at all this riches we got for ourselves. They said, nope, with all this, it's the Most High that gave it to us. Let's do right by it. Let's make sure we take care of the widows, the orphans, the soldiers that were maimed in battle, right? Because they deserve their just due. And the residue then will part amongst ourselves, right? So that's important. Because, it's not just going to war for warfare's sake. It's about the preserving and the building up of the nation. That's what it's about. So when we talk about being a warrior, it's the difference from being a warrior versus a warmonger, right? We're not to be warmongers, right? We're to only aggress and to fight offensively if there's cause for it. Not just because, we just want to do conquest for conquest reason. Just for conquest's sake. So, let's make sure we take note of verse 28 as well.
So, I mean, like here and stuff like that, the higher ups, they keep all the spoils to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. The veterans and the servants and everything, they don't get any of that.
Yeah.
The higher ups keep all that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we took care of our main, our veterans, people who are main, and the servants too. Like, hey, everybody get a little piece,
Mm-hmm.
Come. Those who need it the most get the most help that's needed.
Yeah, look out for them first. Look out for them. Look out for them.
Exactly. Verse 29, when this was done and they had made a common supplication, they besought the merciful power to be reconciled with his servants forever. Right? So after a great victory like this, where even for those that had faith in the Most High, they knew on a carnal level this was a bleak chance of survival, given how strong his force was.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking the Most High, please have mercy upon us. Don't have these Greeks continue to do this to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 30, moreover, of those that were with Timotheus and Bacchides, who fought against them, they slew above 20,000, and very easily got high and strong holds and divided amongst themselves many spoils more, and made the maimed, orphans, widows, and the aged also, like you were saying, the veterans, the aged, the olders, the gray beards, the gray heads, equal in spoils with themselves. Mm-hmm. So just to hit that point home. And when they had gathered their armor together, they laid them up all carefully in convenient places, and the remnant of the spoils they brought to Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. Then it says, they slew also Phalarches, that wicked person who was with Timotheus, had annoyed the Jews in many ways. Furthermore, at such time as they kept a feast for the victory in their country, they burned Callisthenes, that had set fire upon the holy gates, who had fled into a little house, and so he received reward meet for his wickedness. Right? So, and we had to do, we had the major victory. Now we got to do cleanup. Right? We got little spots we need to clean up in here now. Right? Mm-hmm. We've done the main deal. Now we have to do it kind of like you clean a car. You clean the whole car. You got to do the detailing. So now it's like it's time for the detail work. It says, as for that ungracious Nicanor, who had brought 1,000 merchants to buy the Jews, see that? Like you were saying, pre-sales. He was, through the help of the Lord, brought down by them, of whom he made least account. And putting off his glorious apparel, and discharging his company, he came like a fugitive servant through the midland unto Antioch, having very great dishonor, for that his host was destroyed. Right? So, look at the shame he came back home with. It's like similar to the shame that Sennacherib had, we just read about, right? After losing such a battle.
He come to say fugitive.
Mm-hmm.
But he felt bad.
All the way to Antioch.
Yeah, which was, the city named after the Seleucids over there in Syria. So they had to go all the way back with their tail between their legs after catching a serious L like that.
Lost.
So reading on, it says, thus he that took upon him to make good to the Romans their tribute by means of the captives in Jerusalem, told abroad that the Jews had power to fight for them, and therefore they could not be hurt because they followed the laws that he gave them. Wow, so another example of the heathen admitting, yeah, when they serve their God, and their God fights for them, we got no shot. So only way we can deal with them is to get them to compromise their values and beliefs, right? If we can get them to compromise their values and beliefs against their God, then we can gain the advantage.
That was the enemy said.
Yeah.
And they knew that way back then. That's why they destroyed us by not paying attention to our God and making us go away from our God.
Yeah, with
That's
the
what they do now.
eat this unclean meat, don't keep your Sabbath. Like we read earlier, remember they said they got the wise men of Athens to come sit down with them and parlay and be like, what's with these gods? Look, why don't you serve our God Jupiter? He's a just God too. He's got these practices associated with him you might like. And, they were just like, some of our people were like, oh, okay. But the people who had some sense were like, oh, no. We're not going to deal with the Jupiter, defender of strangers. He's not our God. He's that God is just the idol. We deal with the true and living God. Heck with that.
Yeah, so plus also in a lot of big churches, like the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, all those big churches, they make it all nice and pretty and big, and celebrities come there and want to entice our people to go there, and break the laws, and go there, eat with them, and all kind of unclean food and all kind of stuff. So that's what they do.
Yeah, come. And then they do the proverbial get you to sell your soul, right? Like you see on the YouTube, they have always interviews with these music artists, and they're all talking about, oh yeah, I met up with so-and-so at Columbia or Universal, whatever record company, and I sold my soul to the devil. They just say it just like that. And people, in the comments, they're more like, oh, it's just a figure of speech. It doesn't mean, anything like that. It's just talking about they put their nose to the grind and put out, some albums. But it's like, there's more to it than that. It's not just going to work for the company. But it's neither here nor there. The thing we know in the truth is like you already sold your soul if you weren't keeping the commandments anyway. They say, oh, I used to be in a Christian family, but you already dealing with idols in a Christian church. All you do is just get more wicked. Only way you can keep your soul or have it is to keep the commandments. Scripture say that. A lot of folks thinking that they're quote unquote selling their soul. They were already Satan's property already. Now they're just doing more wickedness.
So let me pose a question. The Macedonians and the Assyrians are the same people?
The who?
The Macedonians and
the
the Assyrians, are they the same people?
Macedonians were like a family of Edomites at that time. The Assyrians were the ones that came from the Kurds. They were a lot older. The Assyrians are who you read about Asher when you read the Table of Nations.
Right.
They were one of the sons of Shem. Like you had Elam, you had Asher, you had Lud, I think, and you had Arphaxad. We come out of Arphaxad. We check out the Table of Nations in Genesis 10. So Asher was the son of Shem, and he became a nation, and they became known as the Assyrians.
No, but it mentions them in a couple of verses before the end. So they just joined in Macedonians joined them with the Syrians against us. Then.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but they were of us. Yeah.
Well, no, I think the Assyrians were talking about. We were just reading the history about what happened to Sennacherib.
No, it was actually in here just before that last battle that we talked about. They actually mentioned was 4,000 Macedonians. Just before the last fight.
What verse?
All right. It'd be like 4 or 5 verses back before the last fight.
Let's read here. As you get those, just write down these links. Just write down Judith. This link's for the last verse, verse 36. Just write down Judith, chapter 11 and verse 10. We have another example of a heathen admitting that anytime we follow our God, that we can't be stopped.
Judith what?
Judith 11 and 10. And you could also link up verse 36 with verse 10 of the same chapter.
Judith 11 and 10.
Yeah, Judith 11 and 10, and also you can link up 2 Maccabees 8 and 10. Just verse 10, which goes into where Nicanor tried to pay the Romans back with our soul captives.
What 2 Maccabees was that?
8 and 10. Just go back to verse 10. Just link verse 10 in the same chapter with verse 36. That's all.
Judith 10 what?
Judith 11 and 10.
Because of 8.
And 36, the last verse. And then also, once again, link up 2 Maccabees 8 and 36 with verse 10 in the same chapter.
Okay, that's verse 20. Now we are.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Last chapter, 8:36, right?
Yeah, that's the last verse of what we read. But you supposed to link it with 8 and 10.
10. Judith and 2 Maccabees.
Right.
Right, it says in Babylon with the Galatians, along with the Macedonians.
Oh.
It says Babylon. Remember, you look at the Greek Empire. That was part of their. That was part of what they conquered too. Babylon. It's in what we now call the Middle East. That was part of the Seleucid dynasty too. They controlled the Asia Minor and Syria, and like going what do you call it? Westward.
He was telling to build the spirit.
Right. That's what I said earlier. It was a recent battle that they had, like in recent time against the heathen. Because you look at the map, you'll see that the Seleucid dynasty had covered that region. It covered like towards the east, going towards the east from Syria eastward, and it included Babylon. That was part of what Alexander conquered. Mm. You look at the plots of land that the different generals had power over. The 4 generals of Alexander. Mm. So he's just going back to a battle they had over there and how they were successful. That's all.
Now this particular battle wasn't to be celebrated every year like Purim and Esther, right?
No, that didn't come yet.
What's that? No, I was saying, but this particular battle wasn't to be celebrated every year like those other battles.
No.
The day of Judith and God.
That's going to come up later because it's going to tie back to First Maccabees, because First Maccabees, Second Maccabees are kind of like Kings and Chronicles, where they talk about the same events, but then one book has detail, the other one doesn't, and vice versa.
So this particular battle is the one that they celebrate?
No. It would have said it. It would have said we kept that day in gladness.
Right.
But that's not what
they
happened.
Just didn't celebrate that particular battle over and over every year like they did always. Mm-hmm.
Right. Otherwise, it would have said at the end,
right,
we kept this time, as a day of gladness to be remembered, etc., and so forth.
Right.
Just like there's no day of Sennacherib, but it's in the history.
Right.
And we go back to it to remember it. Like, yeah, we took out those people, but there was no holy day set up. It's just in the record, you know.
Okay.
Just a battle. That's
This
it.
battle that we won.
And the Most High delivered us.
Right.
But you know what? I keep on thinking about Ali Hahn. He scored all of them. Who couldn't even see him? Ali Hahn.
Who was that?
Hey.
Oh, the Elohim, yeah, okay. Elohim.
It's a Allah Haim.
He killed all thousands.
185,000.
Yeah, they didn't even know it.
Right. They was
They
in.
sleep in the night, all of them were dead.
Yeah.
The way you say one angel in the Hebrew is Allah Haya. The way you say plural is Allah Hayam.
Huh?
It's two
For,
ways
your-
to
for
say
your
that.
information, when you say just one angel, you will say Allah Haya. When you say more than one, it's Allah Hayam.
So he sent more than one angel, just one angel. He did all the work by himself.
That's what it says. It says angel, singular.
So, huh?
And then you also see in the Hebrew, I think it's Malachi. Yeah, Malachi. Malachi is how you say angel or messenger. Specifically, that word angel is Malachi.
Malachi?
That means messenger.
Right.
That's what angel literally means. It means messenger. Just like apostle. Apostle means messenger too. Okay, so here we'll make an end as we finish the service for today. Remember, for next week's Sabbath service, we're going back to Leviticus.
Leviticus?
We'll be reading Leviticus chapters 15 and 16. So Leviticus 15 and 16 is going to be next week's reading. Make sure during the week you read that before we get to the Sabbath, so that during the week you can ask questions if you have them. Leviticus 15 and 16. That'll be our reading for next Sabbath service. And also too, remember this upcoming week, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we're gonna have back-to-back holy days. So we'll talk to the brothers and sisters about, who's gonna come, arrangements, preparations, things like that.
Leviticus is what? 15 to 16?
Yeah. So Monday night is gonna be the day of Judas, and Tuesday and Wednesday night are gonna be the first and second days of Purim. Right. So we'll come here, have a service where we go into the history behind Day of Judas Monday, and then Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we'll go into the first half and the second half of the Purim history, which is pretty much the book of Esther and all the parts that are in the Apocrypha. So if you want to read ahead of time, we definitely encourage it. Just read that book of Esther, you get the whole story behind why we keep Purim.
Oh, okay. In the book of Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which nights are we actually having the food?
All three.
All 3 nights?
Mm-hmm.
Right here and there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What day?
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Like we said before.
What's that?
I said we've been talking about it, so I'm just going to put a reminder out there.
We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah. Come. So with that, we'll say a Shah Shabbat or a happy Sabbath. I hope everybody was edified with our lesson today. Everybody enjoyed the readings. We're encouraged by the readings, right? Especially, both chapters I think were definitely good, but I think chapter 7 definitely something we can, to be meditated upon. And chapter 6 we read 3 weeks ago, as far as just what some of our people were faced with at the hands of the Greeks, but then still how they stood true even when their lives were on the line. I think that's something we all could and should read to be encouraged, for where we can look at our situation and go, man, they went through a lot worse than I did, but then they still overcame and attained an everlasting name. I can certainly overcome what it is that I'm dealing with as far as my personal challenges. And that all I have to do is lean upon the Lord and trust in his mercy and do the right thing. And I can attain the same victory. Come. So Tawab service, Tawab readings, I should say, as far as the word goes. Yeah, that's it. Besides, we will talk to you this Monday coming up for the Day of Judas. That'll be when we come together again.
Mm.
So definitely, read over those things. Feel free to check out the history on those things over the course of the weekend. So that early in the week, you can be ready to go through it and get understanding behind it.
Yeah, what time it gonna be on Monday?
It'll be like the usual feast. Just come before 9.
Like 10, 9?
We usually start the feast around 9 o'clock.
Okay.
If earlier, I or someone else would send out a text saying we're going to start earlier than 9, but typically it's 9 when we start the feast.
9?
Yeah. So make sure you just come before them. All right, so with that, we'll do the closing prayers. Shalom wa Shar Shabbat.
Okay.
Oh, as far as Day of Judas, I didn't just realize I didn't mention it. That's First Maccabees chapter 7 and Second Maccabees chapters 14 and 15. That's the history dealing with the Day of Judas that we actually remember. So, I was thinking that, but I didn't quote it when you said, is this what we celebrate? Do we celebrate this victory against Nicanor? And I said, no, we celebrate Day of Judas, which actually takes place later, but I didn't quote the verse. So Day of Judas, which we actually do remember, is towards the end of Second Maccabees, the last 2 chapters, but also some First Maccabees chapter 7.
First Maccabees chapter 7, 14?
First Maccabees chapter 7. Second Maccabees chapters 14 and 15. It goes to a little more detail. First Maccabees 7 is kind of like the synopsis of what happened. It happens after this, what we're reading here in Second Maccabees.
That's the Day of Judas.
Yes. So feel free to read over that this weekend too. Barakapaya Hawa by Shimi Hawashai Asharanat and Anawa Parya Gapim Tuada Aman. La Hawa by Shimi Hawashai Af Yash. Ahmad Wa, Panua Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh Basham Yahushai Babakoshay Shemai Lanawe Aithad Yam Yan Aithad Shalak Mike Allah Walla Allahayim Tazwadakim La Shamar Ayo Barak Rapha Magan Wakazayak Banya Yash Allah Washalak Lanawa Rabium Kakama Rabium Da'ait Rabium Bayanad Rabium Sabalanwak Rabium Mama One Rabium Aqua Rabium Mahabium Rabium Haganad Rachanaya Wasalak Katayam Nawe La Akim Wa Akiwak we are Shalatam Ye Why Walam Basham Yehoshe the water Aman. English translation, Yahweh, name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now. Right now, send Mike on the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh Basham Yahweh Shai Barak Nawe Wayash Allah Wabat Yasaparim Shema Yeshua Yahweh Allah Noah Yahweh English translation, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel and the house of books. And then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. So, Shalom Yasharala wa Ashar Shabbat. And Most High will be talking to you this upcoming week during the holy days that are to come. Firstly, in the day of Judas, Monday evening. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.